It's the morning drive.
Welcome to the morning drive. I'm your host, Brooks Fiesinger of BrooksFiesinger.com and MillionaireWho.com, where we help you stabilize your wallet, secure your future, and succeed in entrepreneurship and finance. I'm here with my co-host, Hyundai Sonata. All right, today we've got some interesting things on the docket. We're going to talk about how I quickly became a billionaire and how you can too. Don't you hear that stuff all the time? You can become a billionaire. I'm going to talk to you how easy it is for you to become a billionaire. And I'm not joking. No joke about that at all. I'm going to talk a little bit about net worth and why that's important. And then lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about the value of a dollar. It's all tying together very closely. So don't be surprised when they all kind of flow together. But first I'm going to talk about being a billionaire. So, I founded MillionaireWho, I think I've mentioned a few times, more than 10 years ago. And, more than 10 years ago, founded this MillionaireWho concept that was intended to be the story and the explanation of how I went from ramen noodle fueled college student to millionaire, right? And that was kind of the vision. And I've talked about this before, but MillionaireWho kind of died because I kept trying these things. I was working hard. I was still in college. I didn't see it. It wasn't working. I knew that if I worked hard, that anybody could make $1 million and anybody could become a millionaire. And yet, no matter how hard I tried, for some reason, it wasn't coming quick enough, which was kind of the funny thing about becoming financially successful, is that it never comes fast enough. For anybody, I've never heard of anybody who just becomes a millionaire overnight unless they win the lottery, right? And even people who seem like they get it quick, like a musician, for example, they just made it big one day. Yeah, and they've been practicing and working on that for 20 years, or 10 years, or 5 years, but definitely not just started it yesterday. I've never heard of a musician who picked up an instrument one day and then the next day had $1 million, right? That's never happened to my knowledge. If that's you, come talk to me. I'd love to interview you and have that conversation, but my understanding is that it's never anywhere close to ever happened before. So it takes a lot of effort to become a millionaire or a billionaire or a trillionaire, whatever you're trying to become. And I kind of got frustrated after a couple of years, and I stopped updating MillionaireWho.com. And I got so caught up with everything else, I just it wasn't working. I wasn't a millionaire. I wasn't anywhere close. I think after a couple of years, I was barely any better off than I was when I started, and I just really wasn't making the headway that I needed to make. And so when you're not making the headway for a long time, you kind of can get discouraged sometimes. And I was definitely, no questions about it, getting discouraged. And I got caught up in everything else, and I just gave up on it, right? You get caught into that concept of, oh, well, maybe just living the middle-class life is good enough, yeah. But that also has its own problems, and that's something we don't talk about enough. But so I kind of gave up on that MillionaireWho concept, becoming a millionaire. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Didn't mean I stopped believing that it was possible. I was just working so hard and just didn't see it coming because I had so many failures and so many things weren't working well at all. And then it was a number of years later, not that many, maybe 6-7 years later, then a friend tells me, hey, I really am impressed by you. I look up to you, and you've just been so successful. And it got me thinking, wait, how funny is this, right? So I am a millionaire, and it happened. It didn't take forever, right? I mean, it took a couple of years, and everything I thought would happen did happen, but I had just somehow gotten discouraged about sharing that and communicating that with others. Once again, I didn't stop what I was doing. I was still doing the same thing. I just lost faith that I was going to be able to have that goal at the end and sit there and say, hey, look at this, I did it. That was kind of the whole MillionaireWho concept. But the reason why it's important is because I don't doubt for a minute it's easy to become a millionaire. It's easy, right? if you're not a millionaire, it's because you're not trying to be a millionaire. That's pretty much my only thoughts. I don't know how else you could not be a millionaire unless you literally aren't trying to be a millionaire or not trying to be successful. So if anybody can become a millionaire, some of you can do it in 2 years, some of you it's going to take 30 years, but 100% of people can become a millionaire. I'm pretty comfortable with that. But what about a billionaire? How hard is it to become a billionaire, right? You might be thinking of what a billionaire can do, and some of you won't even comprehend what $1 billion is, right? Like $1 million seems unrealistic to you, and a millionaire seems like they can do anything. So what the heck does a billionaire do? And $1 billion is 1,000 millions. Think about that for a minute, right? 1,000 millions. That's a lot of money. So I mean, if you have $1 million, you can spend, fairly easily. You can probably spend $100,000 a year or so, as long as you're being smart with your money and being real savvy with it. You can spend $100,000 of your money, and you're not going to lose any of your money, right? You can spend that every year, and your money will pretty much stay consistent. Now, a lot of financial experts are going to say it's potentially a little lower, depending on how conservative you are. So, for example, maybe you want to sit there and say, okay, well, it's $40,000 or $70,000, depending on which metric you use. But either way you look at it, you're somewhere between, $40,000 a year and $100,000 a year that you can spend every year and not burn it. Now, compare that to being a billionaire, right? So if you are a billionaire, then that means you should be able to spend somewhere close to $100 million a year and not lose any of it. Maybe only $40 million a year, maybe $70 million a year. So think about that for a minute, right? So you think of all the stuff you can do with $1 million. If you're a billionaire, you can spend $40 to $100 million a year, right? $40 to $100 million every year and not eat into your savings. Isn't that not incredible? Not eat into it at all. 40 to 100 million. So you think about all the stuff you can do as a millionaire, and then you realize with a billionaire you can do a whole lot more. And there's some really, really cool stuff that some billionaires are doing out there. There's billionaires funding some really cool medical research. There's billionaires funding. There's somebody, his name's Jane. He's working on funding a mining expedition to the moon. I'm thinking about that for a minute, right? Actually, flying people up to the moon, or not necessarily flying people up, but flying up to the moon specifically with the intent of mining rare minerals and shipping them back here to the Earth. That just seems crazy, right? And then they're only talking about, well, how much is it going to cost? First expedition is going to cost $50 million, right? $50 million bucks. That's a lot of money, isn't it? So, how do you have $50 million to do an expedition like this? Well, if you've got $2 billion, then essentially you can spend 80 to 200 million per year without having any financial repercussions. I mean, there are repercussions. It means you have less money in your kitty at the end of the day, right? But that's how much money you should be churning out with those assets. So in other words, spending $50 million to do that awesome project of going to the moon is something you can do, right? There's no reason he can't do that. And that's the kind of power of a billionaire. So, that's what a lot of you guys are thinking about when you think of being a billionaire. I want to explain to you guys something about how easy it is for you to become a billionaire or even a trillionaire, right? It seems like it's such a complex, hard thing to do. Who can do it? Who can't? And any one of you right this minute, right, could, if you wanted to, take a moment and head down to your neighborhood eBay, aka go to ebay.com. And when you get to ebay.com, you're going to have the ability to purchase things. And one of the things you can go purchase is something like this, right? I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is $50 trillion in Zimbabwean currency. Now, somebody out there is going to sit there and say, hey, this is like a scam. How are you going to tell me that you've got $50 trillion and you're a billionaire and a trillionaire, frankly, when this isn't even real money. Well, guess what? This is real money, right? This is real money. This is real Zimbabwean currency. And so it is real money, right? And this is the point, right? The point is you're sitting there saying, well, that's not what I think of it. What is a billionaire, right? What is it to be a billionaire? What is it to be a trillionaire? What is it to be a millionaire? What does it mean? Think about that for a minute, right? Does it mean having $1 billion US dollars? Nobody has $1 billion US dollars. They don't. All these billionaires that you think of, none of them have $1 billion, right? And that's a hard thing to understand. I bet you, I doubt there's a millionaire that's got $1 million. You know, there might be somebody in the world who's sitting on $1 million, like that one person sitting on $1 million. But nobody sits on $1 million. Nobody's got $1 million. Nobody's got $1 billion. So that's, you know, you got to understand that, you know, when you're a millionaire, you're not going to have $1 million cash sitting there. If you've got $1 million cash sitting there, you're an idiot. All right, unless you got the cash sitting there temporarily to do something with. You know, you should never have a cash. It just doesn't even make sense. Why would you want $1 billion cash or $1 million cash? You don't, right? You acquire assets, and when someone calls themselves a millionaire or a billionaire or a trillionaire, it means they have $1 million, billion, trillion dollars worth of assets. That's derived, comma, your net worth. So while you can sit there and say, hey, this isn't really trillions of dollars, it is, right? What are you talking about? In this case, I say, you're wrong, I'm right. This really is $50 trillion. And I keep this with me. I keep this in my wallet. And I urge you to do something similar. I know some other wealthy people who go put money in their wallet, a bunch of money in their wallet, to carry it with them all the time, just to remind themselves of what they can do and what success is. And I keep this with me to remind myself about what a dollar means. What is $1 trillion? What is $1 billion? It's not real. Nobody has a real $1 billion, right? Now, this is just as real as $1 billion US dollars, right? They're both real dollars. They're both real value, right? So the kicker is, what can you do with those dollars? So once again, you're going to sit there and think for a minute, wait, what are you talking about? Yes, this is really trillions of dollars right here in my hand. I carry on trillions of dollars. That makes me a millionaire, a billionaire, and a trillionaire, right? I'm a millionaire, a billionaire, and a trillionaire. No question about that. That's a fact, right? Now, does that mean I can go buy a trip to the moon? I don't have enough money to buy a trip to the moon right now, right? Someday, but not right now. I don't have money to take a trip to the moon. But it's an important lesson to realize. You need to break the bond of what you think a dollar is. I used an example a couple weeks ago where I actually bought a business and a property for nothing, okay? So I paid nothing. Nothing came out of my pocket, and I get a business and a property, okay? Let's just say, for simplicity's sake, that business and that property are worth $750,000, and I owe $500,000 to the bank, okay? So if I have something worth $750,000 and I owe $500,000 to the bank, then that means I have $250,000 net left over, net worth in that business. So I've got $250,000 business that I paid nothing for, okay? In other words, I just added $250,000 to my net worth, right? I did. I added $250,000 to me. I have another $250,000 on paper. But think about that for a minute. What did I do to get that? Had a few conversations, signed a contract, right? If you are connecting wealth with earning a dollar bill at a job, then your odds of being successful are pretty darn close to zero, right? You got to break that bond. I go to work every day, and I'm not telling you don't work. Working is important, but working generates a certain level of income, and that certain level of income is only useful if you can leverage it and if you can use it in other ways. And using that to generate or to purchase things if you need things, if you want things, and to generate future wealth and future cash flow. So once again, you're earning a paycheck, but you got to break the bond between that bill, the check amount, and how much money you personally have. Because if you don't, then you're going to be miserable, right? It's a lot of work to earn every dollar. But that dollar that you earned at work, if you put it in a mutual fund and wait 30 years, how much is it worth, right? Is it worth $5? So, if you make $10,000 this month or $5,000 this month and you go put it into a mutual fund and that's all of a sudden worth $50,000 when you retire, think about that for a minute, right? That money changes value depending on when you use it and how you use it. And that is a very important conversation to have, right? The value of a dollar isn't, who cares? It doesn't have value. Money is just pretend. It's fake. It's just a la thing that we all use to trade things with. And the way that you determine the value of money is also kind of up there, right? So there's different ways you can value money. There's different ways that you can get money, but it's all about creating value. So break the bond of dollars and think about creating value, because just getting dollars doesn't matter. It's about creating value, building that net worth on paper. And once again, there's no reason you can't be a millionaire or billionaire or trillionaire. And there's no reason you can't, with your billions of dollars, go buy a yacht. Seriously, right? Don't buy a yacht with debt unless someone else is paying for it. But, my point being, it's all pretend, right? You got to break this bond in your head of what a dollar means. And, in fact, what is the net worth of $1 million? I could easily argue, legitimately, no exaggeration, that every single person in America is a millionaire the day they're born, right? It just sounds crazy. But according to the globalist, there's three different groups. There's more than three groups, but there's three different groups that have valued what a human life is worth in the United States. So the EPA claims that a human life is worth $9.1 million. The FDA claims a human life is worth $7.9 million. And the Department of Transportation estimates that the human life is worth $6 million. Now, what do they base the human life value on? It's the economic value. So it's how much money is that person going to provide over the course of their life to the economy and to the benefit of society. So if you're going to generate $9.1 billion, right? Or $9.1 million. If you're going to generate $9.1 million, then doesn't that mean you are worth $9.1 million? And if you are worth $9.1 million, isn't it a pretty easy argument to say that your net worth is then $9.1 million? Why not, right? So if you're going to generate $9.1 million, then why can't you equate your net worth at $9.1 million? Then the question is simply, how are you going to keep that $9.1 million that you're generating? Because that is an important piece of this, right? There are a whole lot of successful people out there that burn their cash. And if you burn your cash, then even though you're creating value, you're not keeping that value. And if you're not keeping that value, what use is that value to you? You think about every dollar that you value that you generate for the world, for yourself, for your family, for your company. Some of it goes to different places. Some of it's going to go to your company and your company's overhead. Some of it's going to go to your company's owner. Some of it's going to go to yourself in your pocket. A lot of it's going to go to the tax man, right, to the government, but the federal, state, local. Every penny you earn is split between a whole lot of different places, and every penny of value you generate is split in even more. So think about that, right? If I generated $10 million at work, right, value to the world, $10 million, my company might keep $995 million of it. Then, 4.9 million of it is going to go towards overhead, and $100,000 of it is going to trickle down to me eventually, which I then have to share with the government, among others. So once again, you think about what is a dollar. Even a dollar earned isn't really a dollar. A dollar value generated isn't a dollar. It's how much of that value that you generate can you retain and save and use it to create future value. And that's what's really, really important. And that's why the concept of, what is a dollar, what is $1 million, what is $1 billion, it's really a crock. I mean, even if this was $1 million US, it's a crock. What is it? It's a piece of paper. I mean, really, it's a stupid piece of paper. And some people, especially those who tend to be less financially savvy, put way too much value and weight in whatever that piece of paper says. And it's kind of humorous. I mean, who cares? It doesn't matter. No one's going to become rich because they're grabbing a bunch of these off the ground. So, once again, I am a billionaire, I am a trillionaire, and I am a millionaire. And you can too, right? It cost me $2.60 US dollars to buy that $50 trillion in Zimbabwean currency. But, it has value. I can go sell this right now. I can go get value even for this. So now that we've kind of started talking about net worth, I want you to think about what does net worth mean. And this idea that, when we talk about somebody being rich and somebody successful, we're talking about their acquisition of assets, not their acquisition of dollars. Once again, there's no billionaires out there with $1 billion in the world. There's nobody has $1 billion cash. Anyone, right? I doubt there's very few, if any, people who have $1 million cash. I doubt Donald Trump. I doubt Bill Gates. I doubt any of them has $1 million cash. Okay, they have the value in assets. And so keep that in mind, because your goal is to build asset bases. It's not about building $1 million cash. It's about building $1 million in assets. And so that means you can do it in really cool, creative ways. How can you gather that dollar? How can you earn, build that net worth? And you can build it by cool contracts. I mean, most people who are extremely wealthy make that money by signing contracts and by coming up with agreements with people and creating disparity between what they value something at and where somebody else values something at. That is really what net worth generation is all about. It's about creating value through agreements with other people. And whether that agreement is the handing of a dollar bill over, or whether that agreement is transferring a property or business assets, generating or creating assets and growing assets is just that. It doesn't matter about dollars. So get rid of this concept of trying to earn more money. It's not about money, it's about building assets. And you can convert those assets into cash when you need it, right? But you don't want cash. You don't want a bunch of cash. It's silly, It's going to boost your ego for 17 seconds until you realize there's nothing you can do with $100 million in your pocket. So really, you want to cut that bond and stop trying to, earn $1 billion and start thinking about building $1 billion worth of assets and have those assets that you can convert to cash when you need the cash. And you'll be surprised how little you actually need the cash, right? Because a lot of times you can convert assets into other assets that value you or that are valuable to you. I kind of chuckle, if I wanted a motorcycle. Well, I own a motorcycle group, and if you own a motorcycle company, then you just drive one of your motorcycles, right? I didn't have to go buy a motorcycle. I drove one of my motorcycles, and I was excited to drive my motorcycle because, I owned it, I created it, I invented it, we manufactured it, and I was proud to drive around on a motorcycle that I invented, created, and was driving around on. Same thing with real estate. If you own rentals, instead of what do you want to spend money on? Vacations? Well, why don't you go stay in your own rentals that you own? That's something you can do instead of having to count on the cash. So I can't begin to mention how little you end up using actual cash, especially when you're passionate about the kind of stuff that you're doing. But a lot of times, the benefit that you want of the money, you can derive without the money. And this isn't a pitch to not earn those assets. My point is, stop looking at building dollars and start building asset pools. It's all about the value of what you own, and that's this concept of net worth. So stop paying attention to how much money you make. I don't care. Nobody cares how much money you make. You've probably seen CEOs where CEOs are like, hey, I take a $0 income or $1 income. They take a $1 income because they're making millions off the assets, off things like stock options and similar. they're not taking a dollar paycheck because they don't care about how much money they do. It's because they know that the value of their paycheck is peanuts compared to everything else. And if you're specifically obsessed with how much your paycheck is, I'd venture to guess you're broke, right? If you care about how much your paycheck is, you're probably broke. Is that fair to say for those of you watching? If someone tell me if I'm wrong there, but the vast majority of people who care about how much money they're making and what their paycheck is are exactly that. They're so obsessed with every dollar that comes in because that's a dollar that they're spending on something, which therefore makes them broke. If you're worried about the creation of assets and the acquisition of assets, then you're less concerned about the exact dollar that comes in. You're all more concerned about what you're doing with those dollars, which is exactly the kind of thing we're talking about when we talk about generating high net worth and becoming your millionaire, billionaire, and trillionaire. All right, now that we've got that cleared out, I hope you realize that the value of a dollar really is whatever we decide it is. A dollar doesn't necessarily have value. The only reason a dollar, US dollar, has value is because somebody else will trade something for that dollar. And when you break the ties between money actually having some innate value, then you start realizing that dollars aren't always the best way to convert money or to trade things. Say for example, I've got a race team and I want to race. I can sit there and say, look, I need $500,000 cash that I need to go earn to go, build my race car. Or I can say, hey, this engine company will give me an engine for free if I put their name on the side of my car. And this company is going to give me this service for free if I do this. And now I've just dropped my actual cost to $100,000. Does that mean that $400,000 need didn't exist? No, it means that I realized that paying for it cash wasn't the best way to go about it, that I could actually trade services to get at it quicker and better. So once again, it's a huge fault when people think about money and the value of money and the importance of money. Money is silly. Money is a joke. Money doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It's all about your assets and your ability to convert those assets into what you want and what you're doing. So once again, if you've got $1 million cash, more power to you, but you probably want to go spend it on something else. If you have $1 million worth of assets, great. Hopefully you're turning out more assets with that value. And some just takeaway tips. Once again, I truly am a millionaire, I truly am a billionaire, and I truly am a trillionaire. And I'm going to say that with straight face. And I'm saying that with a straight face because it's true, right? You need to break the bond with the dollar. You need to stop thinking of a dollar bill the way that you're thinking about it right now. And you need to think of that dollar bill as just a mechanism for converting one asset for another. That's all you're doing, right? You're converting one thing for another thing using a dollar bill. You don't need the dollar bill to do that. Maybe that is the right way to do it at times. It often is going to be, right? I'm not telling you never use money, but you need to break the mental thought. You got to break the mental thought that a dollar bill has innate value, because it doesn't. It's just a conversion mechanism, right? And whether that conversion mechanism is US dollars, Canadian dollars, Zimbabwean dollars, right? This could be used, this converts value between, just like a US dollar does. Whether it is Bitcoin, whether it is one of a million other type of things that you can be saving and using. It's all about building that asset pool, and it's about leveraging assets for other assets to generate net worth. And when you create net worth, that net worth is what makes you a millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire. It's not cash. So once again, break that bond. It's all mental. It's all mental. Break that bond. As soon as you break that bond, you'll be amazed at what kind of cool things you do, right? All of a sudden now, you're going to be creating assets from nothing. People are like, how can you create $250,000 in money or value without paying a dollar? And I said, you're the wrong person. Why can't you? What makes you think you need dollar bills to create more money? It doesn't even, to me, that's silly. Where would you get that mentality that you need money to create more money? And I've said myself that I think you need money to make money. What I really mean is you need assets to make assets. And it helps. If you've got dollar bills, it helps. You can leverage those dollar bills to create new dollar bills. But ultimately, you don't need money to make money. You need assets to make more assets. That's the easiest way to make assets. But even if you don't have assets, you can generate assets, and you can generate money without money and without assets. It's more difficult, right? but it's very doable. And I've done it, and I'm confident that you can do it as soon as you break that mental bond between a dollar bill and money, right? Break that bond. All right. I appreciate you joining me today. Hopefully you learned a little something today. And once again, go out there and make the impossible happen.
It's the morning drive.